Hello everyone, welcome to Parashat video on Parashat Yitro. Before we start today, I think it's been overdue. I'd like really to thank the marketing department, specifically A.B. Chira, for videoing this every week, and we'd like to wish him success in everything he does, and Be'ezrat Hashem, we should continue filming these videos for a long time. So when we get up to Parashat Yitro, B'shalach was when Bnei Yisrael left Mitzrayim. So Yitro is going to be the parasha that we receive the Torah, because the entire purpose of leaving Mitzrayim was ultimately to receive the Torah. We didn't leave Mitzrayim to do nothing and to hang out in the desert and to be free, to play games. We left Mitzrayim to be free, ultimately to become servants of Hashem, to receive the Torah. But before we get up to Matan Torah, the parasha begins with the name Yitro, and that's the name of the parasha. And there was a man named Yitro. Now Yitro was the father-in-law of Moshe Rabbeinu. Yitro was originally a Kohen Midian, like a priest of another religion, and he hears about everything that Hashem did to Bnei Yisrael. He hears that Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim. Rashi says he specifically heard two things. He heard the splitting of the sea, and he heard about the war of Amalek. And now he makes a decision to join Bnei Yisrael. Now, Yitro takes Moshe's wife and Moshe's two children. Now, the reason why Moshe was not with his wife and children is because he didn't want to bring them back to, when he was in Midian and Hashem appeared to him by the burning bush, by the Sinai, and he says, go to Mitzrayim. Moshe says, I'm not going to bring them to slavery. I'll leave them with their father, with their parents in Midian, and I'll go take Bnei Yisrael out of Mitzrayim. That means when Moshe Rabbeinu did all the makot and everything, he was without his family. Now, Yitro, together with Moshe's wife, his daughter, and together with his grandchildren, Moshe's two children, he decides to come join Bnei Yisrael. Now, Pasuk says, Yitro comes, and he sends a message to Moshe. I'm here with your wife and your two children. Moshe comes out to greet his father-in-law, and they kiss each other. And Moshe tells his father-in-law everything that happened to Paro and Mitzrayim. He tells him about all the news. And Yitro is very happy about this. And again, Yitro is becoming a full-fledged ger. Ger is a convert that Yitro is joining Bnei Yisrael. Now, this part of the parasha ends with Yitro bringing korbanot, and they sit down for a meal. Now the pasuk says as follows. It says it was the next day. Now this word vayhi mimachorat, it was the next day. There's a lot to discuss here. Some say it was after Matan Torah, but that's a whole discussion. Moshe is judging the people, and Moshe is judging the people from morning until evening. So Yitro sees what's going on. He says, you're not going to be able to do this. You're going to judge them all day. You're going to answer their questions all day. Navol tibol, you're going to wear out. You're going to burn out. You can't do this all day. So he gives Moshe advice to appoint Sareh Alafim, Sareh Me'ot, Sareh Hamishim, V'Sareh Asarot. Now these are leaders over 1,000, leaders over 100, leaders over 50, leaders over 10. Which means you have to, what we call in English, to delegate. You have to hire people who could answer the questions of the people, who could listen to the problems of the people. They could judge the problems of the people. So Moshe listens to his father-in-law, and he does exactly what he says. He appoints Sareh Alafim. He appoints these appointees, which means like you have, let's say in a school, you can't do everything. The head of the school can't do everything. You have to appoint these teachers, these people for maintenance, and everyone has their job. So Moshe Rabbeinu was told by Yitro, he gave him advice. He said, listen, Moshe, you can't do it all on your own. You have to delegate people for smaller courts. That's what we have in America. You have like the Supreme Court for the big things, but you have the smaller courts for the smaller things. And the pasuk says that anything that's hard you bring to Moshe, and anything that's not so hard, they could judge themselves. Which means, Moshe was like the Supreme Court, so to speak, that he was judging the harder cases that needed Moshe Rabbeinu's involvement. That's the end of that part of the parasha. And what it ends with is that Moshe sent away his father-in-law and he went home. Now that pasuk is a little funny. Like, what do you mean? Yitro comes to join Bnei Yisrael, and Moshe sends his father-in-law home. Now there's a fascinating midrash that I'd just like to share with you, that the midrash says that Moshe sent him home and says, no, you can't be here by Matan Torah. Only Bnei Yisrael who suffered in Mitzrayim as slaves, they get to be here by the Torah. As great as Yitro was, I'm sorry, you can't be part of Matan Torah because you were not a slave in Mitzrayim. So Yitro gets sent home, and now we are going to begin the part of the receiving of the Torah. Now the pasuk first tells us the date, the third month, which is the month of Sivan. Bnei Yisrael arrive at Midbar Sinai. Now they camp at the mountain, and there's going to be, what's going to happen for the next few days is Moshe is going to go up and down, and there's going to be like a whole procedure of what happens. Now first Moshe goes up to Hashem, and he says, he comes back. He tells them, This is what I did for you. I took you out of Mitzrayim. I brought you on the wings of eagles, which means I had you travel very, very quickly. He says, and if you listen to the mitzvot, you're going to be a special nation, and you're going to be what we call a mamlechet kohanim v'goy kadosh. You're going to be a mamlechet, like a nation of kohanim, which means special people, v'goy kadosh, and a holy nation. That's that was Moshe's message to the people. Now they go back and forth, and the people say whatever Hashem says, naaseh. Now what's interesting is in this week's parasha it doesn't say the words naaseh v'nishma. That's in next week's parasha, Parashat Mishpatim. But that when Hashem offered us the Torah, we said the words naaseh v'nishma. Not only will we do, but we'll do even without knowing what's inside the Torah. So he tells them, be ready, because on the third day you're going to receive the Torah. And he tells them that you're not allowed to come close to the mountain, because if you come close to the mountain, then there's danger. So he tells them the preparation for Matan Torah. He says on the third day from his from when he announced that they should be ready, there was thunder and there was lightning and there was a cloud on the mountain and there was the voice of the shofar. Again, this is the excitement and the build up to Matan Torah, and the people are ready for the receiving of the Torah. Now Hashem starts with the Aseret HaDibirot. Now what happens is Hashem gives Moshe the entire Torah on the mountain, but he announces only the Aseret HaDibirot, and from then on they would learn the mitzvot in the time afterwards. But by Har Sinai, he announced specifically the Aseret HaDibirot. Now these are called the 10 Commandments. Now just to clarify, the Aseret HaDibirot are not 10 mitzvot, because in some of these commandments, like in the second one, there are multiple mitzvot. But these are like 10 different sayings that Hashem told Bnei Yisrael, and like some of the main mitzvot. Number one is the mitzvah of Anochi Adonai Elohecha. I am Hashem your God. Now what's interesting about Anochi Hashem Elohecha, that Rambam learns it's a mitzvah to believe in God. Other rabbis say it's not even a mitzvah. It's like a pre-mitzvah. Before you could do mitzvah, you have to know that Hashem is one. So it's an interesting machlok. Is Anochi Hashem Elohecha mitzvah? The Rambam says it's a mitzvah. I am Hashem your God who took you out of Mitzrayim. Now the next dibra, that's dibra number one. Dibra number two is you cannot have any other gods. Dibra number three is you cannot make any idols. Now you cannot make idols. You cannot bow down to idols. That's number three. Number four is you cannot say Hashem's name in vain. Number five is to remember Shabbat. Now the pasuk illustrates, it says you work for 6 days, and on the seventh day you rest. Not only are you not allowed to do melacha, not you, not your children, not your avadim, not your animals. It's a halakha that your animals are not allowed to do work on Shabbat, because Hashem created the world in 6 days and he rested on the seventh day. So when you keep Shabbat, you're testifying that I know that just like Hashem rested on the seventh day, I'm also resting on the seventh day. I work for 6 days, I rest on the seventh day, which means I'm emulating Hashem and I'm acknowledging that Hashem created the world in 6 days and rested on the seventh day. Now, Dibra number 5, Kaberet abicha v'etimecha. Sorry. So Anochi is Dibra number 1. Lo Yelecha is Dibra number 2. Lo Tisa is Dibra number 3. Zachoret Yom HaShabbat is Dibra number 4. Kaberet abicha v'etimecha, to honor a person's father and mother, is Dibra number 5. Now the last 5, that's the first 5 on one side, like you see the 2 luchot, that's the 5 on one side, and the 5 on the other side is Lo Tirtzach, do not commit murder. Lo Tinaf, do not steal someone else's wife. Lo Tignov is do not kidnap. Now Lo Tignov doesn't mean over here don't steal, it means don't kidnap. Lo Ta'aneh b'reacha et shaker, do not be a false witness against someone, and Lo Tahmod beit reacha, not to be jealous of the house of someone, the wife of someone, or their servant, or their maidservant, or their ox, or their donkey. V'chol asher derecha, really in the olden days that was like what a person had. Today it's their car, back then it was their donkey. But v'chol asher derecha, not to be jealous of anything that a person has. That's the Aseret HaDibirot. Again, they're meant to study. Now, we just did it quickly, but in 8th grade we learned the Aseret HaDibirot, and it's important to go through them and really understand what each one is saying. Now the pasuk says that the people saw et hakolot. They saw the sounds. Now that's to say that the people saw the kolot. Rashi says ro'in et hanishma. They saw what usually is only heard. They saw the sounds, and they saw the fire, and they saw all this spectacle of Matan Torah. And the pasuk says that they told Moshe, you tell us the dibirot. The rabbis explain that after the 2 dibirot, the people's neshama left because they couldn't handle that Hashem was speaking directly to them. And for the last 8, it was Moshe who spoke to them. Hashem would tell it to Moshe, and then Moshe would say the other ones. Now the parasha ends with a few other mitzvot, not to make images of gods. And the mizbeach that you make, if you make a mizbeach of stones, you cannot have use any instruments on the stones. they have to be more natural. You can't use like a knife on the sword, because a knife is used for killing. And the pasuk ends by saying, when you walk up the mizbeach, it has to be a ramp, and it cannot be walking up steps. That's the last mitzvah of the Torah. But really, it's the focus of the parasha is Aseret HaDeberot. It begins with Yitro. Then it's Yitro's advice. Then we get to Matan Torah, the prelude to Matan Torah, the pre-game to Matan Torah. When Moshe told them from Hashem, you're going to be a Mamlechet Kohanim v'Goy Kadosh, then he told them, be ready in 3 days. Then the Aseret HaDeberot, and then after the Aseret HaDeberot, it describes how during the Aseret HaDeberot, after the first two, the people asked Moshe, please, you be the one who says it to us. We can't handle that Hashem's telling it us to straight out. And the last part of the parasha is you have these couple of mitzvot. The mitzvah that when you have stone, a mizbeach, you're not allowed to use an instrument like a sword or something like that. And the last is that the mizbeach has to have a ramp and is not allowed to have any steps on it. That's the end of parasha video of Parashat Yitro. Thank you.